Hello and good day everyone. Welcome once again to my channel. This is Nathaniel Covenant, and what we'll be doing for today is we'll be trying to solve one of little bits of problems we would normally face when you are fetching or interacting with an API and then trying to populate the data into an array. So I try to revisit my JavaScript and create a small application using Use API, and this is this was the result. So that is all for now, and then we can check. We fetch, so it interacts with the API as expected. We do have dynamic information being fetched, and then mind you, okay, a little bit of pagination also added, so that is no problem. We can see from the console that the information is always being populated into what's an array. So that is what we'll be trying to do today. But I did face a little bit of problem initially. That's when I was trying to populate the data into the array using async await. So that's what we'll be trying to solve and show the process of how I went about it. So this is the Use API, also built on top of our Goal API, and we'll be basically using the simplest of it, that is using the search query and then passing a query parameter to it. Then we are done. So let's get it done. This is VS Code, and mind you, I have live server also installed, which will make running our HTML files simpler. So if you don't have it also when you're following along, you can install live server from the extensions here. Then live server. That is it. So let's begin. Okay, first Async data. That is how I need my photo. That's not a problem. So index.html, then we use inbuilt VS Code shortcuts to populate or just speed up our programming process. Hello Async. We're just testing it out whether our live server works before we get down to the nitty-gritty stuff of what we'll be doing basically today. So yeah, it's responding. Okay, so I'm going to structure my folders in how I do like it when I'm programming. You can also do along as far as you're comfortable with it, or you can do one of your own choosing. So I will say resources, and then come on. So never mind. So you can name this DOM scripts.js. Then that's how I like to structure my file system when programming. So it's subjective, you can do as you wish. It will still result in the same output depending on you know what you're doing. So okay, API endpoint .js. So the mother of all the JS files will be this DOM scripts. So I'll link the DOM script here. So I'll just do that here before we start. Scripts src is the file path /resources/domscript.js, and then I'll add this keyword differ. Now I'm adding this differ because most of the times when you do fetch your data, you're going to probably manipulate your DOM elements using the fetch information from the API, that is rendering it into the browser, because the information fetched from the API has been rendered on the DOM. It means I interacted with the DOM element. That's why I'm using the differ. It helps it helps to render the DOM element before fetching the scripts to manipulate it. So that's the use of the differ keyword. You also have async. That is when the DOM elements, that's when different scripts are independent of each other. So that is it. You can check more on the differ and async keyword added to the script tag. So let's say our constant, I'll say constant base URL will be base URL for this URL endpoint is up to search. So that is what we'll be implementing as our base URL. Then I'll export this because I'll be using it in other modules. Okay, so that's our base URL. Then I'll import it in the API endpoint. So here will be import base URL. Okay, a path has been pre-populated, that is constant. Then I'll say constant fetch, can give it any name, news data equals. So since you're using async await, we pass the async keyword there, and then after passing the async keyword, what we can do, we'll be using to use try catch, wrap it around async await. You can console log the error to check if any error occurs. Okay, you can say let's response equals await fetch, and then pass string literals, ESS string literals. Then we'll get our base URL. Then we'll go back to the search. How can you search API? We have a query and then pass query parameters to it. So question mark query, that's how we pass query parameters. Query equals maybe Kraken. Okay, that should do. And then the response object has a value of okay, so we can check that before we return our data retrieved. So we can say if response dot okay, then we can pass it to a different variable. Let JSON response equals await response dot JSON. Then we can return our JSON response. We can return our JSON response. So we can also pass exports here directly if you want to, or you can specify it here to follow your programming structure or how you want to do it. So we are going to export always below code, the export fetch data. So I'll come to, you have the constants, you have the APIs, come to the main script file which will be using the API endpoint. So we import fetch news data. So there we have it. And what do? We can say probably function get retrieve data. I say let data is equal to, since the fetch news data is an async await object, you have to add async to this function. Let data is equal to fetch await fetch news data. Then we can console the log data to see if you are getting the right response first before we populate it into an array. So Okay, so let's check our browser and see whether our API endpoint has been fetching being in the console log objects within our browser. So we go to inspect. Okay, let's see console. Okay, so we have errors all here. Let's check the errors. Unquote. Okay, this is the syntax error. Cannot use import outside the module. Okay, this error is simply resolved by adding a type to the script, which is module, because you're using import and export modules within our projects. So basically that's how I resolve that error. Adding type is equal to module. Okay. Okay, good. So our data here has been fetched. You can see the information. Cracking my windshield. Let's see. Then the actual app. Cracking my windshield. Okay, so the same data. Then what we do now is we want to save it in an array. So we go back to DOM script. Now within DOM script, what we'll do is, okay, let's minimize it so that we can view from the browser and the code editor at the same time. We can say let news array equals empty array. So I think what we will attempt to be doing would be probably now let me keep it so that we know the data is coming, but our news array is empty. News array dot push data. So we'll try and say console log news array. Okay, good. So our news array has been pre-populated later, but the array shows it's empty. We can know that our array is empty by basically trying to use a map to loop through so that we know that our array is empty. Our array, although has an object here, it is empty first, so it means when you try to map the data, map the array, you have an error. So let's see that, otherwise it will be deceiving. Array map, so the array object will be array.map. So array news array dot hits dot map the hits object here, that hits, which is hits is an array, dot hits is an array, dot hits dot map news console dot log news. So you can see on code type error, cannot read property of undefined reading map, which shows that although when we console log our news array, we do have the content of news array. This is our array which is empty, but when you click, it has been populated because it was an async await function. It was waiting and later repopulated it. But when you try to map through it instantly, it will show you an error because there's no data or no object type hits within it. So this is what you're going to do. Basically, the data, the map maps through it instantly before the array becomes pre-populated, and that will be the cause of headache. So to do that, we just we just take this off. What we do need is to say news array. So let him clear the console logs and make it clean and clear the console logs. So yeah, this is our data now. So I can return data. We want to save it in the array. We'll say news array dot push you call the function which is retrieving the data from the API endpoint, but we don't, since this is an async function, you have to await it to get it to be pre-populated, otherwise the array will still be empty. So within the console log, let's console log the news array, and you'll see the difference that this time the news array has data within it. You can see this is the object, an array with an object. That means the array has been populated. Other than the first one, let me demonstrate it once more so that you get to see the difference. Other than when we said news array dot push, news array dot push data, and then console log. Come on, let's have text console log news array. So you see the array is empty. It means we didn't await for the information. The array is empty. So the trick is to basically await our function information, the function data returned from the function. So that is simply news array dot push. Then we are await, because this is an async function, await. Then when we console log, we see that the array has been populated. Now we can map through it and then we will not get any error. So let's try that and see. The news array dot now news array, so an array object at index 0, news array index 0, because we have one object in the array. So news array index 0 dot hits dot map, and we can map through, since hits is an array, as can be observed here. Hits is an array dot map. Okay, console log news, and let's check from that also. Yeah, our news has been console log to the screen. So that is this all. This is kind of the weird quirks which happen, then try to give headaches when you're programming. So thank you for watching and understanding the whole process. If you have any question, you can add it in the comment section and I will do well to reply you. Thanks again for watching, and that is how we fetch information to an array. Alright, goodbye.